You guys ready for your next storyteller? Oh, it's a treat. Go crazy for Kevin McGeehan. Come on. Come on, one more time. Kevin McGeehan.
We all have things about ourselves that we do not like. And I have found that if you just accept and embrace those qualities, sometimes it just makes things so much better. One of mine was that 15 years ago, I began to bear a striking resemblance to Chuck Norris. This is now something you cannot unsee. When it first started, it was the early 2000s, and Chuck was everywhere. Walker, Texas Ranger was in heavy syndication. The Total Gym with Christy Brinkley commercials were everywhere. And the internet facts, the Chuck Norris doesn't flush the toilet, he scares the crap out of it facts. And now, in the last 10 years, I think the comparison is awesome, and I completely have accepted it, and I think it is the funniest thing that complete strangers will stop me on the street because they feel compelled to tell me that I look like Chuck Norris. But when it first started, I did not like it, because every time it was said to me, it was always accompanied by a laugh, which in my insecure brain made me think that I was being mocked. So for a long time, I refused to accept it. But then my attitude completely changed, because one night, I did something very stupid. In 2004, I worked for the Second City in Chicago, and my 6-person touring company was given the coveted job of a 2-week artist in residency at an English-speaking theater in Vienna, Austria. And now Vienna is a magical place. It is steeped in history with exquisite architecture and amazing cuisine. And a few cast members and I, because we had so much time on our hands, we all thought that this experience would be better, grander, more magnificent if, you know, we had weed. So, we went to the friendly owner of the local restaurant that we frequented, and he told us the very simple procedure, which was to go out behind the restaurant to the park, find some guy who's trying to look inconspicuous, and he's selling weed. Another cast member and I went down there and easily procured a modest amount that made the next day's visit to the museum at Hofburg Palace an absolute delight. A few nights later, I arrived at the restaurant early, and I thought it would be a magnanimous gesture to surprise the rest of my cast by going and get more to replenish our dwindling supply. So I ducked out back, and I went to the park, and I looked for another inconspicuous guy, and I found one, but it was not the same guy from the other night. This guy looked like a young Cuba Gooding Jr. So I approached Cuba, and we found out that he speaks English, and I said, marijuana? And he said, not here. Too dangerous. Follow me. And then he walks out of the park, and going on the old adage, when in Vienna, blindly trust their drug dealers, I obediently followed to an as-yet determined second location. We cross a busy street, and then we go over to a side street that is almost desolate. And then from the other side of the street, a man approaches, and he triangulates himself behind me and to the left. And this guy looks like a young Steve Buscemi. So Steve has made it impossible for me to go away, and as we are now on this street, it starts to get really eerie, and I start to get really nervous, and all I keep thinking is, oh, you are so stupid. You have just put yourself in, you are so screwed situation. But I couldn't figure out how screwed I was. Was it get beat up, steal your cash and passport kind of screwed? Or was it get beat up, taken hostage, rich European buys me and hunts me for sport kind of screwed? So I muster up courage and I say to Cuba, yeah, I have to go meet friends, so I need to actually go. Cuba turns back to me and he says, no, just a little farther, right there. And right there was a little park that was completely deserted and had a big dark awning right in front of it. And because Steve was behind me, I couldn't do anything, so I begrudgingly trudged forward into my fate. So we get into the awning, and once it is now deserted, Cuba stops, turns around, and walks with purpose right to me. Steve closes the gap, and now these guys are inches apart from me, and Cuba is staring at me, and I look over, and Steve is also staring at me, and my heart is pounding, and I brace myself for whatever is next, and then Cuba says words I did not expect. You look like Chuck Norris. And Steve responds, yeah, Chuck Norris, like he had been trying to place it this entire time. And because I was so relieved to have just this reference that we all understood, I said, yeah, Chuck Norris. And then the mood completely changed. And if these guys had intended me harm, this was no longer the case. And these guys were huge fans of the former karate champion movie star, and they thought this coincidence was awesome. And they started listing off different movies of his that they really liked, Delta Force being the one that they loved the most. And then Steve asked, are you related to him? Now, I could have told the truth. But in that moment, I felt it was right because Chuck Norris is a force to be reckoned with. Chuck Norris does not do push-ups. He pushes the world down. Chuck Norris does not take showers. He only takes blood baths. So if anyone ever asks you if you are related to Chuck Norris, you say yes. He's my uncle. Cuba asked, what's he like? And choosing my words very carefully, I answered this question in a way that I have many times ever since. He's exactly like you think he'd be. We finished our illegal transaction. We all shook hands. It was a nice little mood we were all having. And then I started to walk out of the park. Right as I was about to exit, Cuba yelled to me, hey, Chuck, do a kick. And because I was so in this and I was so enjoying it, I just, for whatever reason, did the worst roundhouse kick I've ever done. These guys explode with laughter. I give them a smile, a tip of a pantomimed hat, and then I swagger out of the park. The second I am out of sight, I drop the swagger and I run back as fast as I possibly can to the restaurant. And because I embraced it and because it possibly saved me from a very dangerous situation, as I ran back, I can say for the first time with assuredness, I was happy that I looked like Chuck Norris. Thank you very much.
Come on, Kevin McGeehan.